Okay, let's talk about this. Describe it, the World Photographic Cup.
Yeah.
Yes? So what prompted you to enter that?
It was honestly like 2 a.m, and I saw on Facebook some friends were sharing like, hey, it's the last 24 hours to enter the competition. And I was like, I've never really thought about really entering many competitions. I've only ever entered 2 in the past, and that was probably 10 years ago now. And so I kind of like elbowed my partner, and I was like, do you think maybe we should enter this one? And he goes, competitions aren't really our thing. And I said, well, let's just see what happens. It's cheap to enter, so we'll just see what happens. And so I entered 5 images, and he had entered a couple as well. And we're watching, getting the emails of when they're getting cut, when they don't make it, when they don't make it. And then at the end, I had 3 images in the finals, and he had 2 images in the finals. And at the last second, I found out that I had 2 images make it through, and then he had one that made it through as well. So
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I mean, what's really fun also is seeing all the friends who are also in Alberta and across the country who are, once we were able to actually say who was on the team, to see like, oh my God, that's so awesome, because they're friends, right? Like colleagues and things like that.
Right, exactly.
It's very exciting to have a bunch of people who are on the same team, but also we all know each other, we know each other's work. It's very cool.
Do you go to the gym together or the field together and work out like, the Canadian soccer team?
I mean, some of us, we go climbing together at the climbing gym. So.
Nice. That's a nice hobby to have.
Yeah.
Certain element of risk involved in that, but there's a certain amount of element of risk involved in being a photographer as well. So I was scanning through lots of your work, and you think, an Albertan, somebody based in Edmonton who's a photographer, and you think, oh, wow, lovely bucolic landscapes, rustic farmhouses made of wood with, some of the roof falling away. And I looked at your photograph and I thought, wow, that's completely antithetical to anything I ever envisioned coming from Alberta. Can you just describe kind of what informs your style, as it were, or your style? Let's set the tone first and just perhaps describe, what a typical photograph looks like, because it was really breathtaking.
So I think most of the work, where it really comes from is, I was young and I was seeing all these book covers that were painted by who I now know are like Frank Frazetta and Louis Royo and stuff like that. And it was so different from everything that I've seen, because like I said, I grew up rural Alberta, so wheat fields, tilted houses, old wood, the roof falling off, like that's 100% what I grew up around. And I didn't want to create anything that looked like that. I wasn't really inspired by any of it. And then, of course, when you're young, you read about like, oh my God, castles are real. They exist outside of this province. Like what? And so I basically have made a career chasing all of the things that little kid me wanted to see, right? So, it looks like video game art. A lot of the times it's kind of the easiest way to describe it, but I don't use any 3D elements. So I travel around the world, I photograph all the pieces that I need, and then I come back and then I combine everything in Photoshop, basically. So it's like a very advanced version of cut and paste when you're a kid with scissors and glue in the newspaper.
And you travel around the world to capture these images. I think of one sort of mythical fairy-like creature planted in ice in one of your images that made it through, actually.
Yeah.
So where did you go to capture that image?
Actually, ironically, the ice is from here in Edmonton.
Oh, that's
So if you remember the ice castles that were here for a few years.
I do.
Yeah, a friend of mine was one of their directors. And, they, of course, would let people come in and do photo shoots and stuff like that. But I don't like putting people in cold situations to pose. I just feel really bad about it. I'm like, I can just do it digitally.
Okay.
So I went in there and, and it was, again, I think it was about -35, -40 the day I went in there, and I just photographed a bunch of pieces and then I cut them all up and, created some background pieces from that.
So you talked a little bit about who inspired you and book covers inspiring you growing up. What informs your process now? You said you do use digital, so you fuse together different images.
Yeah.
Do you play with the images as well digitally?
Oh, yeah. Most things are pretty heavily modified. Apart from like the people themselves, unless that's part of it. Like if I'm changing them into like a tiefling or something with horns and big ears and red skin, then it's like, okay, well, then the people are modified. But otherwise, I try to keep the people pretty authentic to who they are and what they look like. But on the topic of inspiration, I think one of the most interesting things for me is how inspiring people can be. I kind of look at everyone and everything not for what it is, but for what it could be and what it can be. someone comes into my studio, or if I'm meeting them for the first time and they want like a private session, which I do sometimes.
Okay.
I'll take a look at them and go like, okay, this is this person sitting in front of me. What kind of character could I turn them into with styling, with makeup, with hair? And that's really fun for me.
So what could you do? No, I won't get into me. Thank you very much. About as bland as it comes.
I could definitely see some like rogue and thief vibes for sure. We stick a big scar in there.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I feel complimented very much with it. There's I have some pirate in my history.
There you
actually,
go.
my
See?
genealogy going back to the
I wasn't too far off.
sinking of the Spanish Armada. So your instincts are good. They play well. So where has your work taken you? You said you travel a lot to capture images.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to spend a lot of time photographing backflights across the U.S. and then through Europe as well. And most recently, a year ago, I had the opportunity to go down to the Falklands, South Georgia, and Antarctica. And that was absolutely amazing.
It's mind-blowing. So you're living the dream, really, aren't you? I mean, you talk about trying to create what you envisioned as a little girl, like all of the fantasy images that you read about and that you saw on book covers. That's pretty amazing. So you stepped into that role and you're actually making a living. And now I have to admit, I'd never actually heard of the World Photographic Cup until the notice came. And they even have a little icon, very much like the World Cup, of like a round soccer ball that is kaleidoscopic in some respects. So what happens from here?
So basically from here, we all have our fingers crossed. I've got a lot of friends around the world who are in teams for other countries as well. And we're all chatting back and forth going like, we can't think about it, because the end of January is when they announce the top 10 in the world for each category. And so right now, every single team has 3 people per category for their country. And then from there, they all get amalgamated. And then the judging goes through, and then the top 10 from every country, there's just a top 10. Not from every country, just like top 10 in the world. Is the end of January. And so we're all just like, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think 3 people from every country are selected per category.
Per category, yeah. So technically we're competing against our own team as well, but also it's all for like our own country as well. Like this is one of the things I appreciate about this competition is that it's a lot more friendly than some of the other ones I've experienced in the past. Like just from the outside, sometimes like all competitions can get a little bit stiff upper lip or whatever, and that's not really my style. And this one is definitely, it's a lot more friendly, and everyone's kind of like in it all together, even though we're all competing against each other, quote unquote. But
you're supporting each other.
100%, and that's really nice
in the work that you do. And you find yourself like in 2 categories already. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
I did not expect that.
That's really spectacular. So, we wish you luck come end of January, and I think we'll continue this conversation.
I guess we'll see
as things progress, and maybe we'll come full circle, and maybe see you top of the heap, as it were.
I don't even want to think about it, but I guess we'll see.
You must have an incredible amount of success, not only in your work and being able to live the dream that you envisioned as a little girl, but also the fact that you have amassed a huge amount of followers, social media-wise, just loving your images, I imagine.
Yeah,
where can we find your images?
You can go onto most social media. You can search some combination of Renée Robyn, which is Robin with a Y, or Renée Robyn Photo, or Renée Robyn Photography. It's whatever one of those 3 I'm on there. So I'm on YouTube at Renée Robyn. And then Instagram is at Renée Robyn Photography, same with Facebook. Okay. And then Twitter, now X, whatever, is Renée Robyn Photo, same with TikTok. So.
Okay. Well, we've got our fingers crossed for you, Renée. And look up Renée's photographs. Absolutely breathtaking. Thanks a lot for this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I super appreciate it.